Hey AP Bio, this is Mrs. Farouk, and today we're going to talk about organic polymers. And something important about organic polymers is to know the functional groups and how they give that particular macromolecule its property, what are monomers and polymers, and two types of reaction, condensation and hydrolysis. So if you look at these two molecules, you have testosterone and estradiol. And if you look at the structure, they're very similar and they have different functional groups. And yet each one of this has this unique property and gives the estradiol the female, which is known as the female hormone, and the testosterone is the male hormone. So very similar molecules, but different functional groups, which gives these molecules their unique properties. Now, it's important to know what functional groups are. These are functional groups that you'll find in a macromolecule that determine how that macromolecule behaves. So know these functional groups, and then you can predict how that molecule will behave. So one of our simplest functional group is the hydroxyl group, or OH. Now don't confuse this with OH or hydroxide ion. Now the hydroxyl group, anything with the hydroxyl group is called alcohol, and it makes that macromolecule polar because it can form also hydrogen bonds with water molecules and help dissolve organic compounds such as sugars. Carbonyl group is called, you can find these in aldehydes, and you'll find this in sugars. And basically there's two types of sugars. There's another carbonyl group which we find in ketones. So there are two types of sugars, basically ketone and aldoses. Now the carboxyl group has two versions, the ionized form where it loses that hydrogen atom, and non-ionized. And as you can see, it has the word acid. And what do acids do? They give up hydrogen ions. And so again, it makes that molecule polar and acts like an acid because it can donate that hydrogen ion. Now another group is amino. And notice it has a nitrogen and 3 hydrogen as ionized, and when it loses a hydrogen, when it has an extra hydrogen, it's ionized. When it has 2 hydrogens, it has non-ionized. Now, amino groups or amines, you can find these in proteins, and it acts like a base because it's a hydrogen acceptor. And again, it makes that molecule polar. And phosphate groups, you have phosphate and oxygen surrounding it, and organic phosphates are phosphate groups attached to a carbon skeleton. And if you can remember when we talked about ATP, phosphate groups have those negative charges, and it's always associated with greater potential energy to react with water, releasing energy, and usually has that -1 charge. And sulfur hydryl, basically you'll find a sulfur, you'll find these in proteins. They form disulfide bridges in proteins. Now, how do macromolecules form bonds and break bonds? And basically you have to just remember two types of reactions. One reaction is called the condensation or dehydration synthesis, and basically remember that's removing a water molecule. And when you remove a water molecule, hydrogen and and oxygen and hydrogen from another molecule, it forms water. And when you remove that water, then it forms a bond between the two, and that's called dehydration, removing a water molecule. And you'll find these reactions when you are making bigger biomolecules. On the other hand, you have hydrolysis. The word hydro means water, lysis means to break, and when you add a water molecule to a compound that causes this bond to break, and you have the hydrogen and the hydroxide attaching to the other atom, therefore breaking this bond. And then, so you're going here, so this is a monomer, and this monomer, when you break that bond, now you have a polymer and a monomer. Okay, so if you remember, a polymer means many units, a monomer is 1 unit. So here you're combining a monomer to a short polymer to get a bigger polymer. So monomer means subunit, 1 subunit, polymer means many subunits. And here you are breaking the bond in the polymer, and now you have 1 monomer and a smaller polymer now. So remember, these functional groups are important to know how they behave, because they give those properties to a macromolecule. And then how a macromolecule forms a monomer and polymer, you have these 2 basic reactions. Condensation is to form bonds, and hydrolysis is to break bonds.